All right. So
A couple of you liked it, so I thought I'm not going to do it again.
All right. Hello. Welcome. Uh, Thank you for coming out on this cold day for lunch and learn at the Castle Museum. I'm Jennifer Lynette, outreach coordinator and your host for these types of events. There are refreshments at the back. I learned we forgot to press go on the coffee pot, so it is working. It'll probably be ready about halfway through, and feel free to get up and help yourself to that
Mhm.
Maybe something like that. Maybe something like that.
With our assistance.
All right. Thank you very much for being here.
Thanks, Jen, and thank you everyone for coming out today on this, one of our few sunny days that we're having this year. What we're going to do today is that I'm going to do a quick primer of how to begin family history research, and then Grant is going to talk about some of the non-electronic and electronic services and items that we have in our collection. Uh, First of all, I also want to thank Jen and the society for asking us here. You know, we've been neighbors for quite a while. Uh, the image on the left is the current Hoyt Library. I loved this one. It was in the winter, and Hoyt Library opened its doors November 1st, 1890, and it was the bequest of uh, Jesse Hoyt in his will that was contested for a while. His daughter was put in an asylum for a while to keep her from contesting for a while, and you know, it all works out that way. So finally we were built, and I had to put this in because this is one of Mike Sonnenberg's images at his site, and it's just an amazing image of the library. Uh, the man on the left is Jesse Hoyt, and the man on the right is C.K. Eddy. Jesse Hoyt was our first benefactor who donated $100,000 in his will to the people of East Saginaw. The original library was constructed and filled with books for only $50,000. And believe it or not, the other $50,000, only in the last few years with the latest preservation, we used it up. So we've been trickling. The gentleman on the right is Charles K. Eddy. He was a lumberman in the area, and his son, when he passed away, set up the Eddy Fund, which is a giant bucket of money that's still producing community benefits to this day. The Eddy Fund was a main donator for the first major renovation in the 1990s. And the what we call our department, local history and genealogy, is also the Eddy collection in his honor. Another image I love, this is us in 1920, just before the first edition, because you can see through the side there. There's houses still where the police department is. And on the left of the image, you can see there's our new sibling that was was brought to life by mom and dad over there, the post office. Okay, now we're going to start talking about genealogy. How many people here have already started family history projects? Oh, cool. So I'm going to be preaching to the choir then. What some of the people here can tell you is that the pursuit is addictive. I always use this as a disclaimer at the beginning. So if you don't want another social addiction, just don't listen. One of the first things that you need to do is take a ancestry chart like this. This is only one of thousands of versions online. It's a nice and simple one so that it's easier for people to start with. And in the first position, that's where you place yourself because you know where you are. And the next two positions would be your father and mother, and then grandparents, and then great-grandparents, and you would go to another page. For one of my family lines, I actually have a 13-generation chart. It's 6 feet long, and I wrote on the whole thing. It's really, it's obsession. Sorry. So this is the first tool, because what you do is you put your information that you know, then you know where the searching begins. And then in combination with the family tree is the family group chart. And this is what you would use for each individual couple. There's room for them, information about their lives, and information about their children and their spouses. And I get this question all the time, well, what happens if one of the spouses dies or there's a divorce? You start a new sheet with a different family because the new spouse doesn't belong to those children. Oh, sure, right in the folder. So what I also tell beginners is that because mainly of the name game, people family recycling names generation after generation, it's easy to get lost. And between the family tree and the family group sheet, it's like having a scorecard during a sporting event, and you can keep everybody in check. The 13 generation chart I have, for example, for about a decade online, there was a actual war between two different sides of that family. And I was on one side, and we were right. Because what I did to find the error through time, this part of my family, they were from a small village in England, in the Yorkshire, West Yorkshire, called Linton on Craven, this adorable place in the middle of the country. Well, because of efforts from genealogists in the United Kingdom, 500 years of church records from their church are online. So what I did is I printed off the whole thing, and I went year by year, person by person, and then I figured out what the other family had done. They had started mixing up fathers and uncles and daughters and wives and made a complete mess. They weren't looking at the dates, and they weren't carefully reading what was written, and it was all there. So we won. But that also shows obsession, because literally I went through 500 years of. And the next paper is just a short list of resources that you can find genealogical information in. What we usually suggest to people at first, rely on the census, obituaries, and vital records, birth, marriage, death. You have to be careful about obituaries and death records because the person who's on them was not the person who gave the information. See, the gentleman here knows. So that's part of you have to be very careful in following the records. Sometimes you have to take leaps of faith. What I have is I have a accordion folder like that in I think I'm up to 11 bankers boxes right now of information. And I have what I call my wild goose chase folder. And something looks good, but I can't connect it or connect a person. I put it in that folder so that I don't have to backtrack to where I saw there. How am I doing on time?
I don't know.
How am I doing on time? Okay, thank you. So I don't have to backtrack. One time, before I started having the folder, it took me 6 months to find it where I'd seen the information that I could connect. I had only made a note to myself. And then I didn't annotate it. So I didn't cite where I had it. So I had to go, back and back and back. One of the items that I found when I was going through my parents' belongings after they passed away was my mother had a box of prayer cards because we're Catholic. Prayer cards are given out at Catholic funerals, and it has the person's full name and birth and death dates usually, and then a prayer. And they're amazingly invaluable. They almost always have maiden names of women too, so that's another thing. I also figured out how I was connected to some people that I was told to call aunt and uncle as a child, because you know where I'm going, ma'am. Because my mother had saved her her list of people to thank for wedding gifts, and so there were people in there. I'm going, oh, they weren't my aunt. Let's see. I almost cut into Grant's portion, but yearbooks can be a help too. Let's see. Covered church histories, vital records. For the state of Michigan, vital records are sealed for a century. Birth records are sealed for a century in the state of Michigan. So you have to wait unless you can get the person who's on the record or a court order. You look puzzled, ma'am. Ooh, I didn't think we'd be going down that rabbit hole. According to the state of Michigan, we are an open adoption state. But that means different things in different states. In our state, for instance, depending on how recent, there would have had to be a release filed by the birth mother that when the child had reached a certain age, that she would be willing to be contacted or not contacted, or information given. Before that time period, there is a process where you have to contract with what's called an adoption intermediary, and that will be a person who has who's allowed to look at adoption records. Usually, they work for social service agencies that deal with adoptions, and they can sit down and they'll answer some of your questions, and they'll try to get in contact with the birth mother to get a release of information. But that's what it is in Michigan for the most part. Mhm. That's the other problem with Michigan law. It's choppy. There's time periods. How long ago did you search? It might have changed since then, because the adoption laws began to change in the late 70s into the 80s. So you might want to give it a try again. If you want, I can give you a packet that describes what you need to do. Or if you just Google adoption intermediary Michigan, state of Michigan, it'll pop up too. You're welcome. Yeah, adoption is weird everywhere. In Illinois, for example, adoptions are open. There's actually an office that a child could go to and say, I want to know where I'm from and who my parents were. And they go, okay. And they just start printing out information. Michigan has been sealed. Only until recently, the state of Missouri was sealed forever. No power on earth could open them. They've finally started changing through the efforts of adoption angels, organizations, and that. So that's oh no. There's only one more thing. There's only one more level of that drives me crazy, and I know it's going to be a long day at work, and I'm not saying it out loud because I don't want to. I'm not going there today. Any other vital question? Vital records? Yes, sir.
I noticed that some
Yes.
Do you use an online resource?
Yes. Ancestry.com is our main go-to. At the library, any of the libraries, we have access to the library edition for free.
If I went on and
The main difference between the two versions is that our version has fewer public member trees, and we get updates of different record groups later. Because I can, for my own account, believe it or not, I have my own account. I can see record groups that I can't see at work currently. But I also, okay,
But isn't it also true that you don't have to have like a subscription or pay to have the library?
correct. Sorry. Thank you, Jen. The libraries, it's free. You can even bring your own machine. And once you jump onto our Wi-Fi, our databases are open. Yep. So that way you don't have to have a flash drive or pay for
but it can't be
toner.
accessed like from my home into your
No.
over the internet.
Yep. We can't afford that.
Okay.
We'd love to be able to, but you know, we're a nonprofit. So, you know, maybe if we had I've offered to say, you know, if you know we have like a, you know, entry fee or something maybe. You know. Yep. So there is a difference. We also use Family Search. Family Search is free to the public. It's through the Church of Latter-day Saints. We can see their public version. Yes, ma'am. Mhm. You learn
Actually, you might try Google Translate.
if you can read it. Hmm. Not there's some versions where you can actually just have the image and it'll do its best. But other times you just type in the words. There's Babel fish, and there are other places. You just Google it. German to English translation. Yes, you can get a general idea. The nuances aren't going to pop up. The one thing that doesn't work, though, that I found is Russian. Russian is a nightmare. I don't know how they know what they've written. I have records for some of my ancestors who were in the Russian part of Poland, and honest, it looks like they did this when they were writing. It's just waves, and I'm like, whoa, what? I don't know what the heck that is. So thank you, sir. Yes, the internet is amazing. There are also groups on Facebook that help each other for different countries. Okay, so the last thing we're going to talk about is research strategy. You have to use the 4 W's and the H, just like if you had journalism class in school. Who, what, where, when, and how. And you have to be strict until you're at the very end and you need to take a jump off the cliff. And always remember, family stories are family stories until you get documentation. Thank you. So remember, you need to adjust your plan depending on what you discover. In my full-length family history for beginners, which I'm going to be doing probably in February or March at the library, I give 2 examples of my family that sent me on the wrong course for a while. Yeah, wasted time, wasted effort, and yes, so there's a longer form, and you'd have to listen to me for 2 hours instead of 20 minutes. Mhm. Yep. Yep. Mhm. Mhm. Oh yeah. And
I didn't open my mind to something positive.
you have to have an open mind because you're going to find out things. What I also tell people, there's nothing new under the sun. Um, let's see, at a seminar with a national organization, the people at the Latter-day Saints are so gosh darn polite. They refer to a child born out of wedlock as a non-parental event. It's so polite. Um, and that's even if it's people are married and they, swap with the neighbors. And I leaned over and told my friend, I said, where I come from, we just say another rooster got in the hen house. But they're so gosh awful polite. So, but there's nothing new under the sun. You're going to find things. I have murderers, insane people, heroes, possible horse thieves and pirates, and just general ordinary people. And you're going to find your family did everything, one way or the other.
With my mother-in-law's family that when they came over from Germany, they brought a niece with them.
Oh,
And they went through the immigration, they claimed her as a daughter,
yep.
and that set us on a whole different.
Oh, yes, you have to be careful. People will say what they need to get to the next day, no matter what. And that's where most of the name changes came in. My aunt or my great grandparents from Russian Poland, they were Wojciech and Scholastica. Here in Pennsylvania, they became Albert and Polly. My great grandmother actually has 2 death certificates in the state of Pennsylvania, one under Polly and one under Scholastica. Confusing? Yeah. Mhm.
Sometimes maybe it's twice, or sometimes it's a woman who's 17, single, now she becomes part,
Mhm.
if you're not really yourself. And it's just on dating names and how to track that back to
If it's within relatively modern United States period, especially since 1860, what I have had success for patrons helping them is I start looking at the neighbors of the multiple great grandfather in the United States Census before they were married, and I start building a list of candidates to be the wife, because more often than not, in the old days, people married the neighbor girl. And then when the neighbor girl passed away, then they'd marry her sister. Like, or brother. Women would marry brothers. And so that's one way. Mhm. And also track down all the children's information that you can. Birth records, marriage records, divorce records, because quite often they'll have to actually put their mother's full name. One of my ancestors, she was a serial marrier. She was married 5 times. I made it. I made it through. Oh, yeah. That's another time to rely on something easy like the census, because normally in the census they'll put some version of their name, their first name. Yeah, they'll put some version. It may not be the legal version, but at least you get a first name. Yeah.
My maiden name is LeGrand, from a little country called Alsace-Lorraine.
Mm-hmm.
And my uncle has been working on that, and he believes that when the French took over Alsace-Lorraine, they added the la to a German brand almost.
Oh, sure.
Yeah.
Why not?
Yeah. And so it made it hard to find records and stuff.
Mhm.
You just don't know
Yes. At least though it's not Russian. For the love of the Almighty, it's not Russian. I'd rather work on Chinese. It makes more sense. Okay, so it's Grant's turn.
All right, I'm just going to do a brief walkthrough of our space and review the resources we offer. The computer room, as Leo mentioned, we have access to a number of online resources. My Heritage, American Ancestors, and of course, Ancestry.com is my favorite. I found a picture of my mother on there in elementary school with a terrible haircut and buck teeth, and I sent it to everyone. You can see we have a card catalog. We have index collection. There are 250,000 some items in there, so we do have an extensive, that is quite the resource. And behind one of those doors, we have our yearbook collection. We have yearbooks for a number of schools, high schools, middle schools, and a few elementary. All right, so this is our reading room. If you wanted to read any of our print material, this is where you take it. This is also where you would review items from our archives. The books, we have all kinds of things. A lot of the printing is from genealogical societies. We also have some city directories and yearbooks, which are very popular. We also have subscribed to a few genealogical magazines if you like to keep up with the latest. All right, the Michigan room. So the material in this room, it just has to pertain to the state of Michigan. So the actual subjects vary widely from old books to church records to funeral records to the Detroit Tigers in the 90s. We also have the Dr. Mudd collection. If you're not familiar with the story, after Lincoln was assassinated, John Wilkes Booth escaped and broke his leg in the process. And Dr. Mudd set his leg and was tried for treason, found guilty, and then exonerated. And then his ancestor used these books to not just exonerate, what's the word I'm looking for? Quit, or quit, then exonerate, or exonerate, then acquit. Got his name cleared. So, and I don't know, we have a slide for it. But all right, I'll go back here. So we also have a wealth of information in our archives in the basement, just boxes and boxes of material. It's all kinds of things, all kinds of records from organizations, businesses, families will donate their ancestors' material. My favorite is we found a little diary from a printer in 1890, and he writes kind of fascinating read about his life. He goes rollerblading a lot. He writes about work. And every once in a while he stops and he starts writing in a code. And I took a picture and sent it to a friend that's into that kind of thing, and we broke it. And he writes about women. Several of them, actually. Am I missing anything?
We also have some family collections.
Oh, yes, that's correct. The Delavan and I'm blanking on the names now. But yes, we do have those family collections are just genealogical materials and other things that families have collected and donated. Yep, anything?
One lady from Texas spent a week with us before the pandemic, and she found pictures of relatives in the Delavan collection that she'd only known their names and had never met. And she also connected the dots for several family members. So she was very, very helpful. And we all have Mrs. Delavan's thanks for putting together this amazing collection.
Is the Delavan collection only about the Delavan family?
No. I don't know if it's in the notes, but there's at least 3 or
There you go.
There are services out there. You can also buy fancy family trees. They look like trees with each family member being a leaf. There are circular ones. There are all types of them. And you can buy those and have it, bring Hobby Lobby or a local spring shop. And but also their services. Be careful of services that say they have your family crest. Yeah, most of that is people like crap. But that is all. What we joke about is that the internet is 90% porn, 5% genealogy, and the other 5% everything else.
Any other questions? Yes?
Artificial intelligence, what effect would that have on genealogy?
That's an interesting question. In my just fiddling around with it, I get I tried ChatGPT to do something like that, and it just recommended genealogy resources. It didn't spit out anything out magically. I don't. I mean, we'll see. That's a field that changes constantly. It'll be interesting to see what will happen in the long run. But right now, I wouldn't really call it a valuable resource for genealogical research. Anyone else? It's true.
And it's also the program has all the same biases as the programmer. So that's going to be another.
Yes? Okay.
But my father was a genealogist, and I grew up with hearing about genealogy almost every day. And I remember how excited he would get when he would find, let's say, a new lot. He would come up there and all light bulbs being lit. As the spirit of discovery, in genealogy changed with the ease with which people can access records. In other words, well, I guess you get that spirit and that discovery feeling is strong now as it was under what I would call the old time genealogists who actually lived in terms of the old dusty records and everything. So I don't know how you can answer that, but I just wondered whether or not there's a way to look at that.
Oh, that may be before my time, but I imagine it becomes much more addicting when you have instant gratification as opposed to making these long trips. Although there's something said to be putting a lot of effort into research and striking out, and then striking gold. So I could see how both would be appealing. On the,
That's why it's here.
we,
And that's how I got started. I went to your department and
That was the before time.
I went there and they helped me. They said, go here, start there. And now I'm more proficient than I was then, but I just walked in and said, I want to
Yep. The local history and genealogy department has the same hours of operation as the library. So if the library is open, you can just come up to the second floor and say hello, and we'll do our best to help.
We could be just
It's very true. Anything else for Leo or myself? Vital.
uh, first, first records are sealed for a century. Nope. Nope. Take long. First records will be sealed for 100 years from the date of the event, accessible only by the person's name, the parent's name, or through a how it was explained to me.
That's okay.
I understand the basic workings of DNA, but not totally how it sequences and everything. So at Ancestry, they're basically just looking at the front of the DNA sequence after it's unraveled. In 23andMe, it's more of a three-dimensional one. So it's more in-depth.
So that's where they help them.
They add new markers to my account every month. Oh, they do now. Yeah. I would go back. You had to pay for the whole shooter to get the in-depth one. What they told me though is that I don't have a tendency towards diabetes, but here I am. They also say I shouldn't have a live. But they are correct. I do flush when I drink alcohol. Yep. Our mitochondria in our cells help to transfer chemical energy to energy for our bodies to function. And mitochondria has a separate DNA from the main cell physically. And you get your mitochondria from your mother. My mother's mitochondria, which I have, I share with a billion of my closest family members in China. And I think what happened, knowing my family and being in Russian Poland, I believe it or not, one of them got out and was sent to Siberia, hooked up with a local chick, and then got sent back to Poland and did a whole bunch of kids. So, genes are fungal.
Anything else?
This is dumb one.
There are no.
That's gonna bug the heck out of me, but that's first thing that struck me was your card file thing.
I only typed 50,000 of them.
Then I look at all these other books and records. Any of them on cloud or get them off the paper and into which has got to be a humongous. But when they're gone, they're gone.
That's slowly becoming a priority.
I can't
This.
imagine.
So we have started digitizing. We have some photographs. We have postcards, and our latest endeavor are these city directories.
Yeah.
And it's nice because they become searchable when after you scan them. So you just enter somebody's name, and it brings up where they were living at the time.
A city directory has how many thousands of entries in it?
I think the last one I scanned had 973 pages.
And you did each page.
We bought a.
Oh my.
Is
No,
it?
this is before. The images are before.
Oh, okay.
There was a
It's-
computer
it's-
in by the door.
We now have a book scanner where you set the book down into a cradle and you press a button and it scans it and makes the text readable by a computer, searchable. And you flip the page, press the button. It's very quick. It is the most monotonous work I've ever done. Some of them are. The ones that we've scanned are. We launched a few more. I think there's maybe 37, 38, and 41. I'm guessing.
And all the cars, about 10 years ago, this lovely gentleman from the Church of Latter-day Saints came and photographed every one of them one summer. And he goes, thanks. And so the entire card catalog is a record group at Family Church. Okay. And it's searchable.
Is that Latter-day Saints, supposedly they have everybody? Do they?
No, not yet.
I've always heard that they were that.
I will tell you a story. One of our very good patrons, when I first started, she was a member of the Church of Latter-day Saints. And they had switched over to the latest version of Family Search. So she was going out to do her year mission for the church, thank you. And she was going to be a docent at the main family history center. And so we were talking, and I told her my genealogical woes. And she said, yeah, you want to see what it looks like for us? And I said, sure. And so I just had one question about one of my fourth great grandmothers. And my cousins who I know who are members of the church, they know just as little as I do. So I felt good. But there are, Ancestry has the most records. Ancestry has billions of records on hundreds of millions of people. And Family Search comes close.
I have my ancestry done, an original one. I'm also Polish. Everybody marks me Polish. Poland. Got together with one of my brothers. But they had me up in Russia, and then the next time they said we had an update, we moved me back further into Europe.
Yeah. It changes over time as we get more additions to the database. Oh.
Did I change?
Anything else? Yes.
I find that like amazing.
Oh,
Yeah, go ahead.
oh, me too.
It's so much fun to read.
So you can get a free, if you're a resident of Michigan, you can get a free card from the Library of Michigan, which gives you access to all kinds of newspaper databases. There's Saginaw News, Bay City Times, I think the Detroit. There are even more. And those are also searchable, which is really great. If you can't find somebody's birth record, maybe there's a mention of it in the newspaper. So you can just punch in the name and you can choose the year and, fingers crossed. It's not perfect. If the quality of the scan they did of the newspaper is poor, it might think B is a C or a D or something. So it's not a guarantee, but it is very helpful. Yes.
All the information you want to know. And so it's just, again, little decisions to find it. Great. By putting those quotations around, it's like, don't look it down, that exact name on the name. Flat says, anytime you see this, it's flat,
It's the wild card. Yep. So if you don't use quotes, and I search Grant Shaw for my name, if the word Grant and the word Shaw appeared anywhere in the article, so John Grant and Sean Shaw, it would pull that up. If you put in quotes, it would only look for Grant Shaw, and that's helpful when you're looking for names or addresses or businesses. And actually, that's not just for the library of Michigan. That's a pretty common feature in most search engines like Google.
I did not know that. I
Mhm.
used it for the first time yesterday and ended up spending about 4 hours on it.
Oh, wow.
Well, what I did was I found his first name was a plus, and then the last name is the same thing. It works the same way.
You have to be careful though, because you can narrow it too far. Another way to narrow down the number of hits, the result, is to limit the years.
Oh, yeah.
So it's easier, instead of looking at 120 years, one year, just 1 year, or
Well,
one
I knew
month
they
or a
moved
year.
it in 1936, so I didn't go back to the 1800s.
It is.
Well, thank you so much for sharing this information. I hope that you all see that Hoyt Library is amazing